Okay, so this is Roblox Studio. So what you can see here is the Metauni hub. So this is what you've been running around in. So I'll just demonstrate some of the basic features here, starting maybe with the window. So you can see the Explorer down here, which basically contains all the objects in the world. Some of them are parented to the workspace, but down further you can see things like players and server script service and starter GUI, and we'll say more about these in a moment. But for the moment, let's just focus on these parts, which are the physical objects in the world. So for example, this is Teleport Lamamu. The basic tools are select, move. So you just drag on these sliders. The other way to move objects is to just select them and drag them, and then they'll just kind of stick to the floor or to whatever surface you happen to be on. The problem with that is it'll tend to tilt things, as it gets on surfaces. So if you want things to be sort of straight up and down, you might want to prefer just moving them with these. So if you look at the properties window, you'll see the actual size and position vectors. That wasn't very dramatic. Yeah, it's a cylinder, so unless you increase both, it won't actually. Okay, that's now very large, and we're inside it. Okay, the other thing is scale. So again, it's pretty straightforward. And rotate. So if you're making new objects into the world, you want to add parts, and then you can change their transparency, color, material. The other sort of properties you want to care about to start with are anchored. Okay, so maybe I'll demonstrate in here. So if I put this object up in the sky and then play. So when you play like this, there is some communication with the server. You can't see other players in here. But for instance, in the old version of the bot, this version of the game running inside Roblox Studio could talk to the Discord bot and move you between voice channels. I think currently, Billy, if you're there, the post version of the bot doesn't do that. Is that correct? I'm not sure.
Sorry, I just joined. Could you repeat that?
Yeah, I think if you go into voice zone, if you go into the zones when you're in Roblox Studio, it no longer transitions you in Discord. I think I got a HTTP error when I tried it, but that's not a problem, obviously. But
if you're running the same script, there's no reason why it wouldn't work, and that's how I've been testing it, so it should work.
Oh, okay.
You might just have to check the zone script.
When I set mine up the other day, it works perfectly from Roblox Studio. I don't know if it's changed since then because I haven't tried.
Okay, so maybe it was just some random error on my end then. Okay, so you'll notice that when I jumped into this, the block fell to the ground, right? So that's because it's not anchored, so physics actually applies to it, and it will fall as soon as you start the world. If you anchor it, then that won't happen. So this output window, you'll see error messages, and you'll see the output from scripts. So if you put a print line in a script, then that's where it'll come out in this output window. So you enable all these things through the View tab. Okay, so now that's still up there. Can I get on it? Okay, so you notice that I can jump on the object. In other words, I can collide with it. So another property that you should be aware of is can collide. So that's here. Okay, so with that off, you'll be able to walk straight through that object. Of course, there's many details like these collision groups and so on, but we won't worry about that right now. The other thing you should be aware of is you can see that when I mouse over in this workspace, I can click on all these objects, which in particular means that if I'm on the other side of the mountains, I can also select those objects, which, suppose I've got some stairs here and I'm just clicking to select those stairs. Suddenly I've selected everything over the horizon. Okay, so that may be not what you want if you're going to delete one stair and you end up deleting half of your level. So the solution to that is to lock objects. So if you click on them, there's two ways to do this. You can just click locked, and now you'll notice that you selecting doesn't grab that object. Okay. Now I've got no way of getting back to it. To click on something that's actually been locked, then you want to, where is it? I lost it here. So if you go to the lock tool, you should be able to unlock it and then select it again. Okay.
Is there a way to mass lock objects? Like select everything in the world and lock it, or do you have to do them?
Good question. Let's try. Where was it again? Over here. Let's see. No, I just locked one of them. Yeah. There is a lock all, I think, but that's... No? There's unlock all. Okay.
Yeah.
How do you go the other way around? So if you're in the Explorer and you have a part, is there a way you can find it in the world if you can't find it?
Yeah, you just right click and you go zoom to. Or you can click, so that will work. So you go to it. Or you can just press F, yeah. So that's sort of convenient. So
cool.
The other thing I end up doing quite a bit is if you go to model, if you want to make something bright, you can attach a surface light to it. So lights and effects are sort of children of the object, so this light is attached to this object. Okay, let me think. These I'll demonstrate a bit later. Oh yeah, so you notice that if you move objects, well, it's not quite visible there, but you can move them on a grid, which is obviously useful for aligning things. And you change the amount of grid, you can turn off the grid alignment, so now it's just completely free. Similarly for rotation. You'll notice that if this is on, if collisions is on, and I try and move it, it won't work. You'll notice this quite a bit if you're trying to arrange objects near the ground. They'll get stuck and you won't be able to arrange them exactly like you want them. You may want to turn collisions off. I think by default it's on. And then you'll be able to freely move things even through each other. Join surfaces will automatically insert welds between objects when you move them close to one another, which will make them physically attached to each other. You probably want to leave that on unless you have some, unless you know what you're doing. Constraints I don't know anything about. The transform tool mixes all three tools. It's kind of like the advanced way to manipulate objects, but I won't try and demonstrate that. Oh yeah, did you guys find this? Russell was very happy with this tunnel. Okay, so any questions so far? Okay, so to actually make things happen, that is to change what's on the server, you need to go File, Publish to Roblox. You can also save to local files.
We can't actually see the sub menus when they pop up.
Oh, interesting. I guess that's a Qt thing then. That's irritating.
If you like streamed your display or something,
okay,
that might work.
Yeah, I might switch to doing that. Thanks. So I'll just end this.
I couldn't get streaming just the window to work at all. It would always just show the actual game window, not the menus on the side.
It's picking up the sub menus.
Yeah, it's capturing everything, I'm pretty sure. Cool. I've done that before. Okay. So can you see this now?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, incidentally, the video I'll publish will be from this recording, not the stream recording. Obviously, that's a higher quality. Okay, so if I go publish to Roblox, I don't know what I did. Maybe I won't actually click that. Then this brick would appear in the Roblox actual world. As I mentioned earlier, if there are people in here when you do that, it won't necessarily, I mean, it's not like it'll instantly appear. They'll have to re-enter the server to see it, or if you want them to see it immediately, you should go to the world on roblox.com, click on these three dots and migrate to latest update, and that'll kick everybody off, give them a chance to reconnect, and they'll see the latest updates. Okay. So, alright, so I think I'll open the Rising Sea node now. Maybe James or Billy, do you want to jump in and we'll demo the team create briefly, because I think people might want to use that. So one very useful feature of Roblox Studio is that you can collaboratively simultaneously edit these worlds. To do that, you want to do a couple of things. You want to go into game settings. There's Billy, just appeared. You want to go into game settings, into permissions. And you find usernames of the people you want to give edit permissions. They probably need to be your friends, so you'll need, in the formal sense of Roblox friends. So you want to go to roblox.com and search for their name in the top search bar, find them, friend them, and then you should be able to add them and give them edit permissions. And you can see here, well, he's gone, there he is. So this is what it looks like when somebody's co-editing with you. And Billy, if you come back over here, we'll show them what it looks like to select something. You might have to unlock it first. Oh, well, some of these...
which one is this the dev one or the...
This is the main one, yeah. Now, this sign isn't... Oh, it's locked, but it's not anchored. Okay, so if you remember from earlier, this object fell over. So let me check it. So if I unlock it, there we go. Okay, so you can see that, do you want to come back and click on that, Billy? So you can see there was a small green dot to show that he's also selecting this. Okay, so if I look at the sign itself, it probably says not, yeah, see this is not anchored, which is why it fell over earlier. Okay. Okay, so there's James. Okay, so to make that work, you have to give them permission. I think then it just works. And you can see in the team create view who has permissions or who is editing. I'm not sure exactly what this list means. So they can also edit the scripts, obviously. Okay.
Layer.
Sorry?
Sorry, Daniel, can I ask the question?
Yeah, go ahead.
In the game settings, it says I need to turn on Team Create to add collaborators, but I can't see where to turn on Team Create.
Okay, so yeah, maybe you need to do that first. So if
Sorry,
you
I've
go
got a
into
lag in my audio, I think.
Yeah, so if you go into the View tab and click on Team Create, you probably have some button here, Turn On.
In View, okay. All right, I'll have a look.
Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do is, what else was falling over that we wanted to fix? This sign over here.
The sign, yeah, was it Liam's sign? I can't remember someone's sign.
The sign's not even locked. Okay.
Oh, right.
So that one definitely fell over as well. I'll lock it. Oh yeah, Liam's sign, yeah. You're fixing that, Billy, yeah, okay. Alright, is that done? Okay, so when we're finished with these, I'll publish the changes and I'll switch over to the dev node for messing around. So one thing you might want to consider if you're doing something that many people are using is having two games, that is two Roblox nodes that you sort of use to stage changes. I'll explain in a minute. So I'm going to sort of demo doing that essentially. Okay, so I'm going to publish this. Yes, if you have the output window open, which you can control in view, you'll see when it's, sometimes it takes a moment. Okay, so now if we were to go in, hopefully the signs wouldn't fall over. So I'll forcibly restart it. Yeah, it seems to be stuck. Okay, good. Okay, so what I'm going to do is now overwrite I have another game called TRS Dev, and I'm going to overwrite that by doing publish to. So here's my other game, and that's the place within the game, and I'll just overwrite it. Blah, blah, blah. Okay.
Oh, do you need me to close it?
Yeah, seems okay. I hadn't seen that before.
Is this the dev one or the normal one?
The dev one, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, it's closed.
So if you're just making your own private node, you probably don't need to worry with this two-stage setup. Okay. So now I'm going to open that.
If you do want to just mess around on your own private one without messing up for people that are playing with it, you can just test in Roblox Studio and not publish it.
Yeah. I don't know what that's about. I'll ignore it. Okay, so usually I try and keep the dev node looking a bit different so I know which one I'm in, and that's a good demonstration of a few different things anyway. So one thing you might want to do is change the time of day. So if you go into lighting, you'll find clock time, and it will do appropriate things like put stars in the sky and put the moon over there and put the sun in the right place. I'm also going to change the presenter display here, so everything's still locked. Let me unlock that. Okay, so you can see the underlying part here is talk display, but inside there's just a light. So that's a bit, one of the things that is a bit confusing at the beginning is that this object here, the image on it actually isn't associated to this object. It's something that is attached to that object. To find it, you need to look in Starter GUI. So actually you should think about this display that's on this object as being something that's kind of like a GUI element that's tracking that 3D object, and that GUI element is copied to each individual player's GUI out of this Starter GUI folder. So to find it, so I don't know a good way of looking at an object and figuring out which GUI objects are attached to it. The poor man's version is just to toggle enabled and see which one flashes off. Okay, so apparently this is appropriate.
I don't think there's any way to see that by looking at the part, because the part doesn't keep track of that.
Yeah, right.
It's a one-way relationship.
There must be something smarter than what I just did. Okay, so what I did there was...
what you can do, if you right-click one of the objects, it says select UI layer image button or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so right-click on the slide. Yeah.
Oh, that's exactly what I want there. Okay, perfect. Okay, I'm glad you pointed that out. All right.
Yeah, I said that there wasn't a way to do it, and then I thought, I'm pretty sure I have done it though. I was trying to remember how.
Okay, good. Okay, well, this live stream is also educational for me. Okay, so at the moment this is an image button. That's because it's possible, as you recall, to click on this when you're inside the game and get a popover. So what happens when you click on it is controlled in this local script. I guess, JC, you can say a bit about that in a moment.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I did there was I just went in and changed sometimes it's called image, sometimes it's called texture. I changed the image, and this is the asset manager, or a version of it in Roblox Studio. I've already uploaded these images. If you want to upload images, you need to do that here. Be aware that there is quite a bit of filtering in place, so if you try and upload images with URLs or mention Discord or have photos of people, they're concerned about that for doxing reasons and a few other things, then the upload will simply fail. It'll tell you it's failed, and if you've broken some of their rules, your account might get locked. So you do need to be aware of those before you start posting content into your world. For instance, one thing I've hit a few of these. One of them is emails in preprints, like on the first page. Generally, they have author email addresses, and if you try and upload those, you'll trip their AI. So on the metauni.org homepage, there's a link to Rules of Roblox, something like that, and I've tried to list there the things I've encountered anyway that you might want to watch out for when you're putting content into your world. The other way to manage the images and so on that are in your world is the asset manager. This is actually in beta currently. You'll need to enable it if you go to beta features, and you'll need to agree and tick this to be able to see the asset manager, but that's quite convenient. So then you can upload in bulk, so you can choose a whole bunch of files, and this is how, for example, the slides for the talk were uploaded. And then once you've uploaded them, you simply right click and say copy ID to clipboard, and then you just paste that in here, and it'll switch over to the appropriate image. Okay, so I want to try this again. All right, so I'm going to publish that. Okay, so maybe a bit of construction advice. So as you can see here, these stairs are made up of parts. So the way I made those stairs was as follows. You just make some parts. And, okay, so here's the problem I alluded to earlier, right? So this won't rotate. Why? Well, because it's touching the ground and colliding, and the collisions. So this collisions option here doesn't change what actually happens when you're running the game. It's only the sort of simulation sort of in editor. Okay, so blah, blah. Okay, so there's a stair.
What did you do to make it so that it wasn't attached? Sorry?
I just turned off collisions here.
Oh, I see.
So this just affects these tools in terms of what they will allow you to do. So currently I can move this through the ground, but if I turn it on, then I won't. Well, so I say, whatever. Sometimes it will glitch and let you do it.
What I found, at least when I was playing around with it, is sometimes the parts in the Explorer end up with like weld components attached to them,
Yeah,
and when that happens, that means it's attached to the ground.
that's right. Yeah, that's a
So I found if you delete those, it usually allows you to modify it.
yeah, right. So I think it probably just made one. Yeah. So if you sort of drag things around, it generally will weld the object to whatever you sort of end up letting go on, and you might need to delete that. Yeah. Okay, so to build things, I mean, you can copy and paste with the usual shortcuts, but Command D on the Mac is useful. So that's duplicate. That's probably something you want to be aware of. Okay, so that'll make a bunch of copies. All right. Now, what happens if I play this? What did I forget to do, audience?
Anchor?
Yeah, that's right. So I just get a pile of timber on the ground. Okay. Okay, not to despair. Okay, so you probably want to keep these things kind of organized. You'll see there's folders here. So to make a folder, you just make a folder. If you've copied something, you can paste into on a folder. That's also quite useful. So if I was to, if I was to copy this, rather than paste, which would just put it out in the workspace, and then you'd have to drag it in here, use paste into. You're also recommended to group objects into models. So a model is sort of a container which contains parts and scripts and other things, lights. So that's sort of something Roblox recommends. And to do that, you just the way I know how to do it is to just make a model and drag things in. What was that?
I think it's Command G.
I see. Very good.
What's the difference between, or the advantages of doing that over just making a folder and putting everything in a folder?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't really know. I imagine that probably, for example, it assumes the objects in a model are quite close together, and so it will stream things simultaneously and so on. So that's my guess anyway.
Can you like pick up an entire model and not pick up a whole folder?
Yeah, exactly. That seems to work.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So for example, the knot is some gigantic. Let me show you. So that's a model, and it's got, I don't know, thousands, 10,000 parts inside it, something like that. Okay. Another thing you should be aware of is that, of course, people aren't looking at this on the same machines, right? So it's got a handy UI preview where you can see what it will look like on different devices. For in-world stuff, that's not such a big deal, but if you're putting GUI elements on top of the world, which I guess JC will show you in a minute, then you want to be aware that where you position GUI elements will look different depending on what device you're on. So you probably want to try this on a few of the different platform choices here. So there are phones and laptops and so on. And this honestly is a bit tricky to get right with the GUI, so I think we're also not completely on top of how to do this properly, but hopefully the current elements are kind of okay. All right.
I mean, this is basically always a problem with different resolutions. Right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, maybe I'll mention that. Well, first of all, there's a lot of documentation online for Roblox. So if you just Google for things generally, you'll get something useful. Where's the? Oh, right. Okay, so let's go back into this. So you'll see things like this. So this is actually two sets of coordinates. The first numbers, 1, 1, refer to scale. So this is relative to sort of whatever this is attached to, in this case the surface GUI. So these are sort of relative coordinates for the position, the size. Whereas the other coordinates are sort of absolute. So that's what those numbers mean. I won't try and explain them because I probably won't do a very good job of it, but be aware that that's what those two sets of numbers mean, and if you're setting up GUI elements, you may want to mix the two, so that's something to be aware of. Alright, so I want to at least get over here and turn on the gravity boots again. Let's see. JC, do you want to take over for a bit and say something about the in-world objects, and then I'll do this to finish off the stream, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I'll stop sharing.
Oh, I think I can't do 1080p. I have to do 720p. That's okay.
Yeah, I can't do 1080 either.
Okay, is that visible?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so I've got a couple of different studio windows open here. This is just my particular Roblox world. And I'll show you some of the examples of the scripting. So Dan already mentioned this with the fact that the objects are kind of split up across separate things. So, for example, I've got these are just two bricks in the world, here and here. But the actual code that controls the display on them is all in the GUI. So what that is when you have GUI elements, you put them in this folder called starter GUI here. And what that does is whenever a player spawns, it copies the contents of the starter GUI folder onto their local GUI object, which basically means that it will be visible for that player. And the reason that you do that, rather than have it just be part of the model in the world, is because it allows the players to have local copies that are only visible to them, which is particularly important when you want to be able to click on an object and have it pop up on the screen so you can read it better. You wouldn't want it to pop up for every player. You just want it to pop it up for the current player. And so every player gets their own copy of these GUI objects, and that controls that. And there's sort of similar folders, like, for example, starter pack controls like the objects that are duplicated into the player's backpack when they spawn, various other sort of things like that. I'm not 100% sure what starter player is. But yeah, let me show one of these GUI objects to sort of give you an idea of the scripting.
Maybe just demo it before you go into the code.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, so if I click on it, it'll pop up a sort of view, and then I can click the right and the left buttons to switch between the pages of this document. And it's got a page counter down the bottom, and then when I want to close it, I just click OK. And this one's the same. Okay, so the way that I control this behavior is with this script. Let me open that.
Sorry to interrupt again, but maybe could you explain how you get those images into there and set up the object?
Oh yeah, that's a good point as well. So what you do is you just click on this. You can see my mouse, right?
Yeah.
So if you click on the asset manager, this upload button, and then navigate to the folder, you can just just upload a bunch of pictures, and right now they're stored in the images thing. Okay, so the local scripts. So the scripting language is Lua, which before starting this I knew nothing about, but it's if you're familiar with some programming languages, it's sort of pretty easy to pick up, and there's a lot of good documentation online. So the script has access to basically objects that are, well, I think by abusing the parent command you could access basically any object in the world, but you can see that what this script does is that it navigates to the screen GUI object that's attached to this slide by taking the parent of the local script object, which will put you to this folder, and then accessing the screen GUI element by just .screen GUI. And similarly for the surface GUI. Oh, actually, I should also say, before I get too far into this, the difference between scripts and local scripts. So that's sort of similar to the starter GUI thing, the player GUI, where scripts that you just want the players to run is you have as local scripts, and then scripts that are server side, there's another component called a script object, so I can just add one. So that would make a script object that's run on the server rather than on the player. Anyway, so then what this script does is it gets the children of the images folder, which is where I've uploaded all these 4 images that control the behavior of what will actually display on the object. And then the order that I've uploaded them, or the order that I've created these decals will control the page order. And then it sets the image that's visible on the object in the world as just the first image in that list. And then in order to control what happens when you click on it, so there's this object here, the surface GUI. Well, so it's attached to the surface of this object. It's just a button, and it's got an image. It's the exact component name is an image button. So yeah, and I've just renamed it the button. So we need to set up the behavior of what happens when you click on that image. And the way that we do that is we connect. We create this button called onOpenButtonActivated. Well, what we want to do when the button is activated is we want to set everything to be visible, set all the screen GUI to be visible, and all of the buttons that are attached to that to be visible. And once we've created that function, we then register it to the button with this line here. So surface GUI open button activated, and then we connect this function on open button activated, which is the function I defined up here. Has anyone got any questions about that? Yeah,
Wait, could you just show the process of, like, if I wanted to make my own, like how I would make a new part and a new starter GUI object?
Sure. So let's just create on the screen GUI a new text button. Let's just keep it called text button. Then what I would do is, so it defaults as visible, but because we don't want it to be visible to the player the moment they open up the Roblox world, they want we only want it to be visible once they actually click on the object. So scroll down here and set it to not be visible. Then when we open it up, we want it to become visible, so we would add a line here.
Sorry, what are you making here?
What do you mean?
So what's this new text button for?
Oh, it's not for anything. It's just sort of a demonstration of how you would add a button to this component.
Oh no! So, what I meant was like, how do I make a whole new physical?
How do you use the thing you made?
Yes.
Oh,
So
right.
if I want to make my own slides on my own brick, like what's the whole process of copying it and changing things?
Sure. So what you would do is you would first create the model that you want to. So if I just duplicate this with Control D, it won't duplicate any of the GUI objects. It will only duplicate the actual physical model.
Mhm.
So what you would do instead is you would go to the starter GUI. You would press Control D. You would select the folder and then press Control D. That'll make a new multi-slide object. At the moment, it's still attached to the original object, though. So what you would then do is scroll down to the surface GUI, select that, and then pick Adorn E, and then select the object. And that has not worked. Why has that not worked?
It might be on the other side. When it attaches to a new object, it picks a face, and it may not be the face you're looking at.
Oh, actually, I know. That's not the issue, I think. Is... Why is my mouse not showing up now? So I think the problem is because I did this.
It's still live.
And unfortunately, that's going to delete it, so I'll have to do it again.
That's actually a good point anyway. So you can add objects. Okay, here's something awesome. Press play, James. Okay, now select yourself in the world. You might have to drag to do it, but select your body parts. Okay, now click on scale and click on the green dot.
Oh. Thanks for that.
Yeah, Russell discovered that. He spends about 20 minutes doing it. He thinks it's fantastic. Okay, sorry to interrupt. You don't stretch, James. That's amazing.
What if I stretch all dimensions simultaneously?
I wish we could add that as an animated emote, like
it's just full
the
pieces.
waves.
Yeah.
You can rotate.
You can also throw yourself up in the air. That's quite impressive. Yeah, that's better to move yourself up. Whoa.
Now I've done it.
That didn't end well. Yeah, but okay. So the general point is that you can use a lot of the tools while it's running, and you can make objects even. So you can make hundreds of balls roll around and stuff. But none of that persists once you click stop.
Yes.
So the changes that James just made were live, and so they disappeared as soon as he stopped.
Yeah, this was something that was of great annoyance when I started out, but I understand. I mean, it is useful that you can sort of play around and not have those changes mess up everything.
Yeah.
But I would frequently find myself making a change, not realizing that it was still live, and then having to make the change again.
Yeah.
So it's just, you should always get in the habit when you make a change, or when you test something, make sure you stop as well, because otherwise any changes you make won't be saved.
So could we run through making that slide object again just briefly now?
Yep. So let's duplicate the model. Let's duplicate the multi-slide object. You navigate to it, and it's Adorn E. There we go. So basically what that is the surface GUI needs to be attached to some surface, so you just need to tell it which surface it's attached to. You can attach it to any surface in the world, I think, but it's probably best to make a dedicated object and then attach it to that. Hopefully, if I play, it should now have an extra copy. And probably if you make a new object, you don't want it to just have the exact same set of slides. So let me quickly go through that process as well. If you want to change the images, all you have to do is set these decals. So
Why is there a decal inside that decal?
it's just me accidentally holding down click.
Okay.
I think you dragged it.
So let's just make one that has a bunch of copies, just one of these images, for example.
What are you doing there? Are you just dragging?
It's making some. I'm just double clicking.
Oh, so wait, go back. So you click on the image in the properties, and then you just double click on the thing in the asset manager. Is that correct?
Yep. So you click images.
Yeah.
You double click on the thing in the asset manager.
Oh, and it adds it.
And then you have to then re-click images, because if you don't, it will become a child of the thing you just created.
Okay.
Which you can then fix by dragging it, but
Yeah,
it's a bit annoying.
Okay, well that double click trick is very useful. I was just copying ID and pasting as I did earlier. That's really stupid compared to that. Okay, good.
And then hopefully now, if I go to that object, it should just putting the decals in that folder. It should automatically create the object. Yeah. So now the starting page is right, and if I go forward a couple of pages, it's still right, and then I think I swapped over to another one. Step right. Save. Yep.
Cool.
And you can see it's got 7 pages. So these multi-slide objects aren't currently in the Rising Sea node, but I probably get around to adding those later today.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, maybe it's worth noting. I mean, there's this Metauni node template on the GitHub repository that's linked to from the guide. That only has a teleport in it currently. I guess we'll put some of these interface elements in there, but the Rising Sea node will always probably be more featured than the template, just because it takes time and effort to put stuff in the template. So the Rising Sea node I'll keep updating that file as well. So if you want to grab interface elements, grab them from either place, but maybe the Rising Sea is a good place to look.
And it is super easy to copy stuff between. In fact, I actually have 2 windows open to demonstrate this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hope.
If I Control C on the multi-slide object, go to some up, and then just go to some other Roblox world. I can just paste it in. Now it will be broken, of course, because it doesn't include the assets that came from the other world. So all the decals will be broken, but you can then go to the object, delete all the decals, and then it should work. Just redo them using images from here.
In the near future, I think we'll have all of this performed by a little plugin that would essentially be a button that you click to make one in your world.
Yep.
Yeah, I wonder if on some computers running 2 different versions of Roblox Studio might be a bit clunky and slow.
Yeah, that's possible. I don't know if you can close one and then open another and have the paste still work. I didn't actually try that.
Yep. But that'll make it easier for us to sort of develop and update things. Because we won't have
definitely
to create a new Metauni node template. I think there's a sort of more streamlined process of updating a plugin if we manage to publish one.
Yeah. Okay. What else did you want to demo, James?
I think that was the main thing. I could open up the zone script, but that's a bit out of my area of expertise because I wasn't the one who wrote it. So you might want to say something about that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe briefly. Okay, you can stop sharing. I'll take over.
Oh, sure. Well, there was actually just one other thing I wanted to say. I think you said it before, but it's definitely worth highlighting, which is make sure you enable the output window,
Yeah.
because often my scripts were failing and I didn't know why until I enabled that window. But if there's some error in the script, it'll tell you what line it's on, so it's very helpful.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, let's take a brief look at zone script. So by the way, Billy made a very helpful diagram, which is at the end of the guide, which tells you how these things are put together precisely. So I'll just describe the Roblox end. So this is a script, it's a server script, so it's running on the server, which is responsible for sending the messages to the Discord bot. Okay, so on startup, it's going to look inside the zones folder here. It will find all these sort of physical zones, so to speak. That's what get descendants is doing. It checks to see if they're a base part, because there might be welds and other stuff in here that you don't want to pay attention to. It connects an anonymous function to the event, which is somebody, well, an object touching that part. Then it checks to see if it's a humanoid by looking for a child part, which is of humanoid type, and then it gets the actual player associated to that, and then it sends a move command, which uses this. So HS is HTTP service, and that gets sent to the bot, and then it's off to Billy's Discord bot to handle that message, and maybe we won't cover that today unless Billy wants to say something about it. You could briefly take a look at the replit code if you wanted, Billy.
Yeah, I think the only thing that could be said is that this could maybe be done more securely. I don't completely understand whether or not it's actually using HTTPS, because it is a HTTPS like URL that it's sending it to, but I don't think the Discord bot actually sets up any specific SSL certificate. But keep in mind that you are just sending, like, if it's not actually secure, you are just sending like plain text over HTTP.
Right.
Just to check, I understand this. This code doesn't. This nested loop only runs once, right? When you load the world.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it attaches these. That just runs once and attaches these. That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. There's a few other bits and pieces here. They're to do with the gather all players and return to general GUI buttons. So maybe it's not worth spending any time on those right now. Okay. Is there anything else you wanted to say, James?
Not that I can think of.
I think a point to make is that where the sort of audience for this isn't just people who want to get into the weeds of this like scripting stuff. We're hoping to make it as sort of abstracted enough so that you can just copy things around and not have to worry too much about the scripting.
Yeah.
And then you can complain to us if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But also, like, go ahead and experiment yourself if you're into that.
Well, yeah, it's the basically the properties window in Roblox Studio is very powerful in that you don't have to get into the weeds of the scripting to change what the object you're attaching it to or what the texture is or something like that. You can just sort of click and drag, and it's fairly straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Having said that, if people with coding experience want to help contribute to building these things, then they're very welcome to do that. Okay, so I'll just start with this then. Okay, so another thing we haven't really covered is spawn locations. So that's that thing over there, maybe? No. So you can put multiple spawn locations, but you'll generally have one already in your new node. I think maybe it's not automatic, so you can make one by clicking here under model. But anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and move this spawn location inside this tower so I can, it's under the ground. Come with me. So I'm gonna show you a cool little bunch of code that somebody, Ego Moose, came up with for putting gravity boots into Roblox. Yeah, that's working. Alright, so I mean, one of the good things about Roblox is that there's a kind of insanely large developer community and user community, obviously. So, you know, you can find a lot of stuff just lying around that you can use. I mean, you can access a lot of it actually through the editor itself. So if you go into the toolbox, you can find many objects here you might want to use. Be a little careful when you put them into your world because objects can contain scripts. So there are viruses which will just keep displaying pop-ups and stuff. So you might want to be careful if you put one of these objects into your world to just examine it carefully and dig into its hierarchy to see there aren't scripts in there. And if there are, check what they're doing. So be a little wary about that. I can't find it now, but I did put one part in at some point that did have something a bit nefarious inside it.
I assume when you say viruses, you mean viruses that are nevertheless contained within.
Yeah, that's right. Well, as far as I know, I mean, not sure I would know if it did anything else.
By the way, the frame rate for me is about 1 frame every 10 seconds.
Yeah, it's
of this stream.
Huh.
Did you have different frame rate options? Like, I think the default is 30 frames per second, but we're really not getting that.
So people either just put code up, or you can download their stuff in Roblox files.
Matt said, "Watch out for snow crash in regards to viruses."
Yeah, that's right. Don't download the Roblox file called wintermute.rbxl. That's a problem. Okay, I hope I can get this working. I did it the other day. Okay, so this is some playground. This guy's set up. This person is set up for his or her gravity boots. Okay, so I need to copy these. And I believe all I need is that. So as James said earlier, starter pack are tools that you start the game with. So you start the game with some gravity boots in this case. I think there's nothing else I need. Try.
I think all the starter X type things are things that's copied from server into local copies on the player. With the GUI being GUI objects, pack being the backpack, and player, I guess, would be some kind of like player scripts, but I'm not sure what.
Whoa.
Do you know what the backpack is?
No, I assume it's like just the inventory.
I think that's all it is. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So you could spawn the player with apples if you wanted.
Oh, I forgot to anchor it.
Let us know if you want us to say wow for the recording. 'Cause
Not yet. I'll say.
we're not,
Yeah.
we're not exactly experiencing much.
There we go. Yeah, I think I'll just see if I can walk up the wall and then we'll call it quits. Before we do that, is there anything else we haven't touched on that we should mention? Whoa.
Can't really think of anything. I mean, I guess this is the thing to highlight. Is if you do the scripting, if you get into the scripting, the documentation online is very good, and like there's a lot of objects in the Explorer, and every object has like a million properties, but it's very it's well documented enough that you can generally find what you're looking for.
Yeah, we should add some links to some channel on the Rising Sea just about like resources and things for building your.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah, you even start on the. I mean, the Roblox has a develop. Maybe we'll call it. And thanks to everyone who tuned in earlier and is still around. And thanks, James. Thanks, Billy. And see you later, everyone.